Exposed. This is why you need to stop thinking about buying pre-construction and selling it on assignment. There's so much stupid, wacky things that kick out your profits and why you don't understand and no one tells you that I'm going to expose the real estate industry in this episode of Prime Property. So I promise you, it'll be worth it. Stay tuned. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Property. So glad you joined me here. Look, I'm making this video today because in the last few months, because there's been a ton of pre-con launches, a whole bunch of people have called me and say, hey, look, Zhen, I got some money. I want to buy a pre-con and then sell it in the future in a few years and make some money. Look, I think it's the dumbest idea to ever do that. And I've talked about it many times, but I'm actually going to take time today and go through step by step and use an actual case study and a number on why it makes no sense for you to do it. Look, I am actually doing this for your own benefit. There's so much fluff in the pre-con space about selling each project. It's the project of a lifetime. Every project's a lifetime. Every project is the best thing since sliced bread. Look, there are merits into pre-construction. But one of the things I have a big issue with is if you're going to try to build wealth or make any money in real estate, you can't be selling things. And it's even worse to be buying something and selling it on contract just because you're afraid of tenants, because there's no money to be made there. I'm going to show you why in this video. So I'm putting it all out there because no one wants to talk about this, because you know what? At the end of the day, if you as the investor are going to buy a pre-con and then sell it on assignment, the agent makes more money than you do. Okay, let me repeat that. The agent makes more money than you do if you buy a pre-con and you sell the pre-con on assignment, right? So let me run through all the numbers by shrinking myself down and expose the entire industry about why it's such a bad idea, right? I hate it, and this is why I've moved away from pre-con ever since the prices have gone up. It doesn't make any sense, especially if you're in this manner, okay? Let me show you the math. Okay, so right now I have in front of you just a spreadsheet. I'm gonna go through the process and the thinking that everyone has on how easy it is to make money in pre-construction by flipping contracts. It used to work, it doesn't work anymore. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why I'm not gonna get into, but I just wanna show you the numbers right now if you're doing it right now in mid-September or end of September 2021, right? So if you were to buy something, everyone's comfort level in Toronto generally is like $500,000, $600,000, but I am going to use $500,000 as a purchase price right now. So traditionally, you're going to have a deposit of 20%, whether it's in 2 years, 3 or 4 years, whatever, that is fine, right? That is absolutely fine because you don't really get an opportunity to sell this assignment or this contract in an assignment until the builder has sold out and all your deposits have been paid, which generally is in a few years' time, right? So your total deposit on something like this is going to be 4 installments of 5%, which is $25,000. So you're about $100,000, right? And let's say you sell this at $600,000 in 5 years, then you're looking at 100% ROI for doing nothing. But again, if you do this properly, if it's in 5 years, that's only 20% ROI per year, which if you look at some places, yeah, it's great because compared to, like a stock, 8% or whatever, like S&P 500 or 10%, it's great, right? But it's not that great until you actually think about what happens on the sales side and the transaction costs and the taxes, right? So this is what everyone's thinking of right here in this example of when they think about buying pre-con. This is step 2 and what I want you to realize. And there's many steps in this, okay? So step 2 is, when you sell your pre-construction condo, you need to incur costs, right? You need to incur costs. So let's just say you sell this place, it generally will cost you 5% because you had a buyer side agent and a listing side agent. And if you tell me, look, I have an agent that's going to do this for 2.5, they're going to find a buyer, and you're leaning on that 2.5% to make a profit margin, stop buying pre-construction condos to make money. It makes no sense, right? If your margin is banking on the fact that an agent is going to cut their commission for you, 1, you're probably talking to the wrong agent. 2, you really shouldn't be doing this because it's a really dumb investment from your perspective anyways, right? I'm just being very frank. So at that, remember, you have to pay HST on these things. So that means your cost to sell is about $34,000. That's sizable. Then you have your assignment fee of $5,000 and you have the HST. Now, I know in the marketing foo-foo of pre-construction, assignments are $0, right? Which is fine. You can knock this out. But again, if you're leaning on that to make profit, you should be buying in pre-construction, right? But I will give you the benefit of doubt that the assignment fee is $0. Then you always have the builder's legal fee, which is like $750 to $1,000. Make sure that's in the contract. If you are buying it, again, there's taxes on it. So that means your total cost to sell this thing is $35,000. Great, not that bad if you're making 100 grand. So that means your net profit is $65,000 over, which is pretty good return over 65. But if you divide that by 5, right, 13%, that's a money sign. Obviously it's a percentage. 13% return over each year in 5 years kind of sucks. Like, let's be real. Like, most of my stuff is doing like 40 to 60% on the leverage basis because there's mortgage pay down and there's cash flow. And that's why existing properties make more sense, even though it's a little bit more work. But if you're going to speculate, this is what happens. You only bank on appreciation. And I've talked about this many, many, many times. But that's only step 2 out of 5. Okay? Step 3. I got to change this because we said we give you the benefit of doubt that we got a 0 assignment fee. So now we got to talk about HST implications that no one ever tells you about. Not an accountant. I've seen this happen enough many, many times with my clients, and I'm warned a bit. Some people don't listen. But again, talk to your own accountant. But this is my understanding of it, right? This is not financial advice. It's just me telling you why buying and selling pre-con at an assignment is a terrible idea. So after you get your $65,000 in, call it net profit, you have to look at profits after taxes. So you probably didn't know this. When you sell on assignment, just because at the end of the day, after the transaction, your lawyer cuts you a check. It's like, hey, here's your 65 grand. You know the CRA is going to come after you the next year or two to get that money back. That is like, hey, I sold something on assignment. The CRA is honing in on you. They're coming after you, okay? No one's going to tell you this until 2-3 years later because most people don't even know about this. So you have to pay HST on your deposit. So if you paid $100,000 in deposit, you now have to pay 13% tax HST on that deposit. Think about that. The reason why people were used to able to make money before is because you could used to buy pre-cons for 5%. So if I knocked this HST down to $3,000 that I have to pay because I only paid $25,000 in taxes, yeah, of course I make money because the margin is bigger. But now the deposits are 20% before you can assign. And I've even read some of the new contracts where they ask you to top up your deposit to another 25%. So in this case, you're adding another $25,000. And then now that means your HST on your deposit is going to get even bigger come the CRA. So that means it's going to eat into your margins even more, right? Then you actually have to pay HST on your profits. So on $100,000, you have to pay 13% of that in profits into HST. So that's $26,000 in total when you add these two things up together that you're losing out. So you subtract that and now you're left with $39,000 in profit margins, right? So let's look at your ROI now, right? So you divide this by your $100,000 in total deposit, you're at 39%, right? But then if you divide that by 5%, or sorry, 5 years it takes, you're looking at 8%. That's pretty crappy. Like, let's be real, that's really crappy. And I'm not even done. This is step 3 out of 5, right? So let's go to step 4. I have to make this a little bit smaller, so you have to screw it. Actually, no, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit for you because you understand the top part here. Once you are done that, okay, there's an even more complicated part of the tax system that people don't tell you. If you are flipping this, there's 3 ways you can get taxed on top of the HST, which is 1, you don't get taxed and you deem yourself as an end user. 2, you try to get it deemed as capital gains tax and half of that profit gets taxed. And then 3, this is deemed active income, this is business flipping, and you're taxed at 100% of this thing, right? This is obviously not a corporation in your personal name. So if, let's just say you hypothetically were making $100,000, your marginal tax run on that is right here, 43% on 100 grand, right? So I'm just gonna use that as an example. So if you claim to use this as an end user, then you won't get taxed on it and your profits are still 33 grand, right? Oh, sorry, I gotta make it consistent. You got assignment fee for $0. My bad. So your profits are $39,000. Let's say assume it's capital gains and you're flipping it and this is deemed an asset, then half of that is taxed, right? So half of your 38,000 is taxed at, right there, half at the 43% marginal tax rate and subtract that. So now you're $30,000 in profit, right? And then if it's an active income, all of it is taxed and you don't have half of that, then you'll tax at 43%. Look, I get this confuses the crap out of a lot of people, but at the end of the day, if you divide this by 100, divide by 5, this is how much your ROI each year is going to look like. Come on, make this a little bit bigger. Right. Look, the last one, if you're taxed at 100%, your ROI is 4%, which is just like a little bit above inflation because inflation is at 4.1%. Again, I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole today. So let me explain to you the difference in how you get classified between the 3 of them. If your intentions, and that's what CRA is, again, not an accountant, right? But if your intention was going to buy that condo and then you were going to live in it and you can somehow substantiate and prove that if the CRA audits you, then you can get deemed as an end user and they'll say. So your story has to line up. If you own a home, which most people generally investing in pre-con do, right? Like they own a 905 home or they own a fairly large home in Toronto, and you buy a studio or 1-bedroom condo for $500,000 right now, and you say, hey, I was going to move into that. Look, it's baloney. Like, let's be real, it's baloney. There's no way you're going to move from your house into that. So there's no way they're going to deem this as end user. Then if you say that you're going to put this as capital gains, again, not an accountant, but most of the time it's not going to pass as capital gains because you don't actually own this. CR is going to always deem this as active income. So this is where you're going to get dinged at 100% income most of the time, unless your story lines up with the fact that you were going to live in that condo and then also go and you found something else and your life changed, right? So if you bought your first property, it was like a 1-bedroom condo, and then that was always your intention, and then you got married, you had kids, and between that 5 years of the build time, you actually have to go and get a bigger house. Cool, you may get that passed as 0%, right? But clearly, most people who are born from their house in 905 or Toronto have a house, and you can't. I just can't find a way where you actually be able to put your money and tell CRA into a pre-con and then be like, oh, hey, I was going to live in there. They're not going to believe it. You're going to get taxed at the full amount, right? So at this, you're left with $22,000 most of the time, and you're not going to make any money. Now, here's number 5 and why it's going to get even worse, right? Who do you think is making most of the money right now? When you buy a condo from a realtor and pre-con, they get paid 4%. I know, blah, blah, blah. Realtor's going to hate me on it, but it's net of HST, whatever. I don't care, right? You get paid 20 grand on $500,000, great. Right? And then when you as an investor want to sell it, you generally pay 5% commission and your realtor get 2.5%. So all in, they're pocketing 6.5%, but it's 2.5% of 600 and it's 4% of 500, right? So now when you look at this stuff, right? The realtor is making $35,000 to help you buy and sell contracts of assignments on pre-construction, whereas you realistically are making $18,000, right? Right? Who's making money here? Why do you think people are pushing pre-con to you and say, oh, hey, you know what? If you want to make money and flip it, I'll flip it for you. No, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. The assignment clause should be used as a just in case of emergency. Oh crap, I can't close because I lost my job and interest rates are really high or the appraisal is really low and you need to shell it out. That's what it's used for, not for flipping on it. Okay, now let's say that you increased $100,000 in 5 years. Then you know what? The market is so much more bearish, so much more bullish than what you're predicting. You're the real estate bear. Let's make this thing $700,000, right? Cool. You're making $64,000 and you're speculating and making a risk. I personally think this is not worth it, right? And let's just divide this by 100,000 and let's divide that by 5. Did I divide that by a million? Yes, I did divide that by a million, right? Cool. So now you've increased your ROI to 30%. That's somewhat reasonable, but I know I can do better in the resale market and I control the asset. It's not speculative, right? So do with this information as you will. I'm just putting out there because a lot of people, and the reason why I started this channel is because there's a lot of crappy information out there in the real estate world, specifically in the pre-con. You need to understand all the implications of what you plan to do from an investment side, because there's a lot of realtors out there who are going to tell you this is the best thing since sliced bread, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and you need to buy this project because you're never going to have an opportunity like this ever again. False. It's not true. Right? You need to understand from someone who actually does this day to day, not just schlucking pre-con, the implications from a tax side and the mortgage and all that stuff for you when you buy an investment property. And this is what we provide to our clients, just truth and honesty about all of this. This is why we make this content, right? So again, I forgot to say this, but make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, right? So if this still makes sense to you at a 13% return ROI, at a very, very bullish perspective of your $500,000 condo becoming $700,000, right? Great, you go for it, that's fine. We can still help you find it because we still have access to a lot of pre-con. But if this doesn't make any sense to you and you understand this and the profit margins aren't as high, this is why we geared and shift a lot of our clients towards different type of assets, right? Because pre-con is very, very speculative now, and we can no longer do less than 20% down since 2017 or 2017 or so. We're now still really big in that space. It's changed a lot, and you need to understand the numbers when it comes to investing, right? So hopefully this kind of sheds some light on kind of the space and the pre-con space and why it doesn't make sense for you to buy a pre-con, sell on some, and try to make some money. There's no money to be made. There's none. Buy and hold is the strategy. If you're gonna do a pre-con, please hold the pre-con, not sell it, right? Hopefully this is an idea. Now, if you're trying to find the most optimal idea or whatever the strategy is, what we're trying to do right now in the real estate space for investors, you can book a call with me using the a link right here. Well, you can't see it right here. It's www.chatlewithzen.com. Until next time, hopefully you understand this. If not, rewatch it. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya. Now that you're done watching this one, how about this one? Oh, you know what? This one's good too. Ooh, this one's really good. You know what? Just watch them both.